Hey folks, welcome to the XNA Roundup podcast. This is podcast number 5 and I'm your host Nick the Dude. Thanks for tuning in. Here at the XNA Roundup podcast, we find the best games on the Xbox Live Community Games tab and report back to you what's worth playing each and every week. As always, the best way to support this show is by subscribing to our podcast via iTunes or YouTube. You can also link or embed our show on your blog, Twitter, or Facebook page. It's been kind of a disappointing week for releases on the Community Games tab, so we're dipping into our games backlog and looking at Johnny Platform's Biscuit Romp. Johnny Platform's Biscuit Romp is a retro-style puzzle platformer that appears very kiddie at first glance, but it's actually fairly hardcore. On each single-screen puzzle, you'll use trial and error to figure out what you need to do in order to reach or reveal the door to the next level. We're going to head into the review now and we'll see you on the other side. From the immediate look and feel of the game art, not to mention the title, you wouldn't expect much in the way of hardcore platforming gameplay. My first thought was this was some kind of Mario clone for children, which is what kept me away for so long. But once I finally got down to playing Johnny Platform's Biscuit Romp, I was pleasantly surprised to find a wealth of compelling content. It's chock full of puzzles and difficult platforming scenarios that kept me engaged for some time. I know it's taboo to mention this, but while I was playing Johnny Platform's Biscuit Romp, I was often reminded of last year's Xbox Live Arcade time-twisting hit Braid, especially after having one of those aha moments immediately after solving a tricky puzzle. Another similarity to Braid is your character's ability to reset a level. Although not quite as slick or quick fire as Braid's main character Tim's rewind button, but it essentially accomplishes the same thing. Well, sort of. Anyway, if you are a fan of Braid, you'll definitely find something here worthwhile, albeit not quite as emo-tastic. Johnny Platform's Biscuit Romp is actually a port of a homebrew DS ROM from Ishisoft, boasting 5 bonus levels added specifically for the Xbox version. Unfortunately, the game doesn't take advantage of an HD widescreen aspect ratio, unless of course you can rotate your flat screen 90 degrees and adjust the rotate screen option in the game menu. I think the most impressive aspect of Johnny Platform's Biscuit Romp is how it so adeptly utilizes a few simple game mechanics into such a deep and rewarding puzzle game. Similar to the best stories, everything has its purpose, and there are very few, if any, superfluous elements in this game. The game system for progressing you through the levels works well, keeping checkpoints every few levels where you'll return to if you run out of lives. The game does get a little frustrating after about level 45, but it's not because of bad game design, but rather because the platforming scenarios are just plain difficult to execute. The sound effects are pretty funny, and the graphics work once you get past the kiddiness of them. One feature I'd love to see in this game is a level editor / creator similar to Little Big Planets, with a community where levels are rated and shared. In short, this is another very solid game and great value for 200 Microsoft points. Worth a look-see even if you aren't typically a fan of platformers. Alright folks, that's our show for this week. Thank you for tuning in. You can get show updates at twitter.com/XNAroundup, and you can email questions, comments, or suggestions to xnaroundup@gmail.com. Thanks a lot and I hope to see you next week.